I lived in peace for years, not realizing that the worst was already inside my house. And when the truth came out, I didn't recognize it or myself. You'll definitely be shocked to hear how the whole situation turned out at the end of this story. I don't remember the exact moment when I stopped trusting Marley, but I do remember the first fracture. It was a Saturday. Gray sky, the kind that seems to press down on your shoulders no matter how straight you try to stand. She was getting ready for her weekly reset, as she called it. Grocery store run, Starbucks, maybe a walk through Target. Something about the way she moved around the house that morning was off. Too brisk, too composed, like a performer getting into costume. And then I saw it, her left hand. No ring, just skin where the gold should be. I asked, trying to keep my voice casual, "Forgot your ring?" She smiled too quickly. "It rubs when I carry bags." It rubbed. For the last 8 years, it hadn't rubbed. And now suddenly it was a problem. I nodded like it didn't matter. But inside, something cracked. Something thin and sharp, like glass under pressure. It didn't bleed, not yet. Just sat there. A quiet, invisible wound. A week later, I took her car to the wash. She hates those automatic drive-thrus, says they scratch the paint. So I did it by hand. And as I vacuumed under the seats, I opened the glove box looking for her sunglasses. And that's when I saw it. A gynecologist's business card. On the back, scribbled in soft blue ink, "Follow up on test." The date matched last Thursday. But she wasn't pregnant. She never said a word about being sick. My stomach did a small, bitter twist. I closed the glove box and didn't bring it up. Just drove home and wiped my hands clean, like that would make everything okay. The strange part was how normal things stayed on the surface. She still kissed me goodnight, still asked if I wanted chili or tacos for dinner. But there were signs, small ones, and they piled up fast. A new phone case, bright red, glossy, like something a college girl would pick. She always said accessories are for influencers. Yet there it was, clutched in her hand like a badge. I asked if she'd gotten a new phone. She said no, just the case. That night I lay awake beside her, counting breaths and wondering who she really texted when I wasn't looking. Days passed, then a week. I'd started noticing how she guarded her phone like it was the nuclear codes, face down on the table, locked even in the kitchen. One night she asked me not to disturb her. "Zoom call with the regional team," she said, glass of wine already half empty in her hand. I stepped into the garage, something gnawing at me. Through the side window, I could see into the living room. She wasn't in a meeting. She was on the couch in a red slip I'd never seen before, laughing into the screen, toes curled under her, one hand twirling her hair. I didn't storm in. I didn't ask who it was. I just stood in the dark and stared through the glass, something inside me curling into a tight, hot knot. Later that night, after she fell asleep, I downloaded Telegram, spent hours learning how to spoof a second account, found a way to clone it under a fake name. And a week after that, like fate giving me a loaded gun, she sent him a selfie, her face half shadowed, eyes wide and hungry. "All men are the same, except you." That was the caption. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone. I stared at the screen like it was written in another language, then read it again, and again, and then silence. Not between us. We still spoke. But in me. Silence in the place where her laugh used to live, where trust used to breathe. From that moment on, I started building a plan. A fake business trip to Alabama was the easiest part. Told her I'd be gone for a week. Told my friends the same. In reality, I checked into a rundown motel on the edge of town, one of those places with cracked mirrors and rust-colored carpets. I didn't need comfort. I needed surveillance. The kind you could hide in plain sight. Small cameras and hollowed-out books on our shelves, motion-triggered, with just enough storage to catch everything I needed. And what I saw over the next 4 days, I still can't get the images out of my head. The first man showed up Monday afternoon, shirt tucked in too neatly, like he wanted to impress her. She let him in with a kiss on the cheek that turned into something else before they even reached the couch. She was tender with him, soft touches, slow undressing. She never looked at me like that anymore. 2 days later, it was someone else, taller, rougher. She laughed louder with him, bit his neck, played music. The camera caught the moment she whispered something into his ear that made him grip her hips like she belonged to him. She didn't stop him. By Sunday, there was a third man. No patterns, just chaos. She was affectionate with him, like they were old lovers catching up after time apart. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a one-time lapse or a secret fling. It was a web of lies, woven tight around me while I slept beside her. Each man saw a different version of her. Each version had nothing to do with the woman I married. I sat in the car outside the motel, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, whispered the same phrase under my breath like a mantra. Don't lose it. Just move forward. I knew then that if I acted out of rage, I'd destroy everything. But if I moved carefully, if I stayed silent, I could build something from the ashes. Not revenge, not yet. Just something better than this hollow hell. By the time the week ended, the flash drive was already loaded. And I knew exactly when I'd give it to her. The duck had to be perfect. I wasn't cooking for her, not really. I was cooking for the moment. I glazed it twice, slow and even, while the sauce thickened and the house filled with citrus and quiet dread. She walked in around 7, that same casual way she always did, like nothing in the world was wrong. Green dress, loosely pinned hair, a little too put together for just dinner at home. Her smile flickered when she saw the table set. I poured the wine, handed her the plate, and we ate. She complimented the duck, asked how my trip went. Alabama, I said. Warm. Boring. We moved through the meal like strangers playing house. Then I reached into my pocket and placed the velvet box on the table. She paused, fingertips brushing the edge. What's this? I didn't answer. She opened it. Inside was a flash drive, labeled in Sharpie, Choice. Her eyes tightened, just barely. She didn't ask what it was. She knew. I cleared the table in silence, poured myself another glass, and walked upstairs without a word. In the morning, I found her sitting in her car, engine off, flash drive in her lap. She wasn't crying. She wasn't moving either, just holding her phone like she didn't know what came next. I didn't stop, just rolled my suitcase past her window, waved to the neighbor pruning his hibiscus, and left. No drama, no confrontation, just clean silence. The divorce papers went out a few days later. Simple, final. Inside the envelope, I tucked a photo. Grainy, unmistakable. Her on a bar stool, some man's hands on her thighs. No ring on her finger, just lips parted, eyes closed, sinking into a stranger's mouth. 2 days later, my sister texted me a screenshot. Marley had messaged her, begging, said it was a mistake, said she wanted to fix everything. The message was long. I gave my sister one line to reply, "You had every chance, and you chose nothing." A few days later, my lawyer called. He found transactions on our child's education fund. Thousands gone. Cosmetic procedures, spa memberships, lip filler. I hadn't touched that account in over a year. He filed it under misuse of child-directed funds and forwarded it to the state prosecutor. That's when she broke. Not to me, to my sister again. A voice message this time. Panicked, shaking, saying she'd do anything to make it right. I didn't reply. Then came the letter, handwritten, left with my sister like a bomb she couldn't throw herself. I never read it. I didn't need to. Next came the fallout. My lawyer found the other man, an IT engineer, married, 1 kid. Wife ran a parenting blog. Happy family, perfect life, at least on Instagram. I sent the wife a letter. Anonymous, factual, tidy, dates, locations, pictures, the kind of evidence that leaves no room for denial. 2 days later, she filed for separation. Their son blocked him on every platform. Marley got dragged through group chats, Facebook threads, even a local subreddit. Her job fired her. Turns out she used her company laptop for some of her evening sessions. Policy violation. The court moved fast. I got custody, the house, the accounts, everything. The judge signed off without blinking. Marley didn't even fight it. When she tried to accidentally run into me at a grocery store 30 miles from her new apartment, the judge issued a temporary restraining order. She messaged me once after that. through Venmo of all things. $5 with the note, "Please just call me." I declined. By then I had already packed up and left town. What she didn't realize, not then, maybe not ever, was that this wasn't a collapse. It was a quiet, controlled detonation. And I'd walked away clean. I didn't drive far, just south enough to feel the heat shift. The apartment was small, temporary, 2 blocks from a cafe, and close enough to the freeway to remind me I could leave at any time. I brought only what I needed: laptop, clothes, the flash drive still labeled choice, like some cruel joke I no longer found clever. I unpacked in silence, set the suitcase in the closet, and left it there untouched for days. No one knew where I was. Marley tried. She messaged my sister again, said she had something to confess properly, whatever that meant. My sister asked if I wanted the message. I told her no. She said, "Good," and blocked her again. For a while, my days became mechanical. Wake, shower, brew coffee, read nothing, stare at headlines I didn't click. The court had settled everything so fast it left no loose ends. No more hearings, no shared custody battles. She'd signed everything with shaky hands, according to my lawyer. But I didn't care about her hands anymore. What I did think about was the money. Not the cash she spent, the pattern, her cosmetic work, the spa memberships, the way she began reshaping herself just as the affair heated up. It wasn't about self-love. It was about competition. That realization settled on me late one night while staring at the ceiling fan. She was trying to win back some piece of youth she thought she'd lost. And instead of fighting with me, her husband, she fought against me, silently, from our own bed. It stung worse than the affairs, because the affairs weren't spontaneous. They were strategic. A month passed. Quiet. Number. Then something unexpected happened. Her name was Jane. I met her at a tiny bookstore next to the coffee shop. I was browsing a shelf I didn't care about, philosophy, pretending to read when she made a soft comment about the absurdity of a Camus quote. I didn't laugh, but I smiled. Something about her voice was grounded, like she lived in her body. Unlike Marley, who had been slipping out of hers for years, we talked about books, weather, random, inconsequential things that suddenly felt like air after suffocating for months. We got coffee. The next day, coffee again. Then lunch. Then dinner that stretched into midnight. She wasn't loud or flashy. She didn't check her phone once. She listened like every word mattered. I didn't tell her anything at first. Just said I was recently divorced. Didn't want to talk about it. She didn't push. She just said, "Everyone has a chapter they skip in the telling," and moved on. By the second week, I realized I wasn't checking Marley's social media anymore. I wasn't wondering who she was texting. Jane had this way of looking at me that made the noise stop. She touched my hand like it mattered. She sat on the couch beside me with bare feet curled under her and a sketchbook open in her lap, designing things with messy lines and smudged ink. And she asked questions that no one had asked in years. Things like, "Do you still feel safe in your own head?" I didn't answer that one. Not then. One night we cooked together. Nothing elaborate. Pasta, garlic bread, cheap red wine. She leaned across the stove and whispered, "You don't flinch anymore when I touch you." And that's when it hit me. She had noticed. The tension, the trauma, the way my shoulders used to tighten whenever a woman leaned too close. And she noticed that it was fading. Still, I hadn't told her everything. Not about the cameras, the surveillance, the flash drive, the restraining order. I wasn't ready to say that out loud. Saying it felt like branding myself, the betrayed husband, broken by secrets. But something changed the morning we went hiking at a state park just outside the city. It was her idea. She packed the snacks, drove the car, carried the map. She made fun of my boots and laughed when I slipped slightly on the rocks. When we reached the summit, we didn't talk. We just sat. The wind tugged at her curls and she leaned into me, head on my shoulder, and asked quietly, "Do you feel calm?" And I answered before I could think too much about it, "Yeah, finally." We took a picture by the waterfall. Her eyes were squinting from the sun, my hand was in her hair, and for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I wasn't faking the smile. I sent it to my sister. She replied with a heart and no questions. That night, Jane asked if I ever thought about going back. Not to her, but to the person I was before. Before the cheating. Before the damage. I told her I didn't think that person existed anymore. She didn't argue, just said, "Sometimes that's a good thing," and kissed me like she meant it. The next morning, I found a note on the counter in her handwriting. One sentence. "Whatever broke you made space for something better." I didn't cry, but I folded the note and put it in my wallet, right next to the receipt from the duck dinner, the one Marley never finished. It started with a call I didn't answer. No voicemail. Then another 2 days later. Then one that left a message. Just static and the sound of breathing. It was her. Marley always did that. She'd call and not speak, like silence could say what she couldn't. I ignored it. Deleted everyone. Jane noticed the tension. She didn't press. Just poured my coffee slower. Handed me the mug like a tether. I appreciated that more than I could explain. But Marley wasn't done. One Monday, a brown envelope slid under my door. No postage, no return name. I opened it carefully. Inside, a letter and a photo. The letter was short, handwritten. Tight loops, no room for breath. She said she missed the man who lent her a charger in college. Said she thought that kind of fate made people bulletproof. She was wrong. No mention of the affairs. No detail. Just vague guilt wrapped in old memories. A move to soften me. The photo was from our first house. She was barefoot on the counter, champagne in hand. I was pointing at the sold sign like an idiot. I dropped the photo in the trash, left the letter in a drawer. By Wednesday, she upped it, showed up at my old office. I wasn't there. I'd been working remote all week, but my receptionist recognized her. Said she looked tired, lost. Said she asked for just 5 minutes. She got none. The next day, my lawyer called. Marley's attorney requested a private meet. Off the record, just to talk. I declined. These weren't talks. They were traps. She wanted me to see her broken, to feel responsible for the damage she caused. Then came the line cross. Jane was on the couch when I got home, pale, shaking. She showed me a message on her phone, a fake Instagram account, no name, no picture. "You think you're better than me? He'll learn. They always do." No direct threat, just toxicity wrapped in bitterness. It was Marley, her last thread of control snapping. We blocked the account and locked the doors like a storm was coming. The truth was, she had no one left. Her friends? Gone. The affair partner? Wrecked. His wife mailed the evidence I gave her to his entire department. He'd been suspended indefinitely. Now Marley was circling the drain, and I was the only familiar thing left above water. But I wasn't reaching back. One morning I found a box on the porch. No address, no writing, just a sticky note. For closure. Inside was her ring, the one she stopped wearing, the one that started it all. And next to it, a flash drive. No label. I didn't plug it in. I already knew what it was. Her final act. A last appeal, her voice cracking over a monologue about love and regret. Maybe tears. Maybe music. I didn't care. I dropped it in the drawer beside the letter, took the ring and shoved it into the garbage disposal. It crunched, twisted, spat gold dust down the drain. I let it go. When Jane got home, I didn't say a word. I just kissed her, slow and sure. That night, wrapped in her arms, I finally understood what it meant to be safe. Not just loved, safe. No lies beneath my feet, no storm behind my back. I knew she'd snap eventually. What I didn't expect was how loud it would be. It started as a whisper. A mutual friend sent me a screenshot of Marley's latest post, not from her main account. This was one of those burner profiles made in a rush, name barely disguised. She wrote about betrayal, about abandonment, about how her husband left without warning after years of neglect, how she was pushed into a corner and experimented with love outside the marriage. She made herself sound like the victim of some quiet, emotional abuse, never naming me directly, but enough people knew, and people talked. Her comments were filled with vague sympathy and a few half-hearted validations. But the DMS told a different story. Screenshots started leaking. People she hadn't spoken to in years were replying with, "Didn't you cheat? Or weren't there three guys?" Or the most brutal one, "You had a good man. You wrecked him." And someone else posted a reply with a clip. It was her. One of the camera recordings. Not graphic, but damning. Just enough to confirm what her vague, sad girl narrative didn't say. Her in our living room, laughing in that red dress, sitting close beside a man who wasn't me, his hand on her knee. My bookshelf behind them, our son's art on the wall. The image went viral. Not huge, not national, but enough. In our circle, in our community, in the digital spaces where reputations are currency, Marley's balance dropped to zero. She shut down the account 2 days later. Then came the fallout. Her boss, who had quietly let her stay after her termination, finally cut her loose. Apparently, someone forwarded the old IT logs and the HR file again, but this time with new details. She was gone by Friday. She emailed my sister again, said she had nothing left, that she couldn't eat, said she cried for hours in the bathtub, said she missed our dog, even though he had died 2 years ago. She was trying to reach anything I might still feel warm about. My sister didn't respond. The lawyer sent me one last update. She was trying to retract part of the settlement, the asset clause tied to her cosmetic expenses. Said she didn't understand the language. The judge denied it. It was over. That weekend, I drove out to a quiet cabin north of the city. Just me and Jane. No phones, no distractions. She brought her sketchbook. I brought nothing. And for the first time in over a year, I didn't feel haunted. We lay in bed one night, whined outside humming against the windows, and she asked softly, "Do you still think about her?" I didn't lie. "Sometimes," I said, "but not with love." Jane didn't flinch. She just moved closer, pulled my hand to her chest and whispered, "That's okay, as long as she's not still inside you." That line stayed with me. When we returned to the city, we found a letter in the mailbox. From Marley. No threats, no crying, just a last-ditch plea written on hotel stationery. She said she lost everything. Her job, her friends, her place. Said she was staying in motels and applying for remote work, begging for interviews, trying to build something back. She asked me for a meeting. No terms, no agenda. Just to talk. I read it once. Then I folded it and slid it into the same drawer as the other remnants. The first letter, the flash drive, a printout of her burner post. I didn't throw it away. I just didn't let it live anywhere that mattered. I never replied. But she wasn't done. 2 weeks later, she tried to follow Jane home. Parked outside the cafe, stayed in her car. Jane saw her, of course. Texted me immediately. "She's here," the message read. "Just watching." I left work early. Drove straight to the lot. Marley was still in her car, window cracked, smoking something cheap and bitter. Her eyes were sunken. She looked thinner, smaller. She didn't see me pull up. I walked right past her car without a word. Knocked on the cafe window. Jane opened the door. We locked eyes. No fear in hers. Just quiet resolve. And Marley saw it. Through the windshield. Through the lie she once lived in. She didn't get out. She didn't yell. She didn't beg. She just drove away. And that, I think, was the real ending. Not the divorce, not the court, not the fallout. It was her driving off, realizing there was nothing left to burn. I thought it was over after that parking lot. I thought her silence meant surrender. But people like Marley don't vanish. Not really. They linger like a scent in old clothes, even after you've washed everything twice. The first ripple came through someone else. The Amazon guy, the one she'd wrecked her life for, showed up in my inbox. An email. No subject line. Just, "I know you don't owe me anything, but I lost everything too." At first I ignored it, but curiosity's a slow poison. Later that night, I read the rest. He told me his wife had left with their son. His job hadn't just suspended him. They terminated him after HR got the full breakdown. Apparently, someone had mailed them a second package. Not mine. Someone else had gone digging. Maybe Marley. Maybe not. He said she'd tried to reach out to him, too. Multiple times. Said she'd shown up at his condo once and sat outside in the rain for over an hour. Said he never opened the door. He ended the email with, "If she tries to drag you back in, don't let her. There's no bottom to where she's going." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. But I printed it and added it to the drawer. The growing collection of what she'd left behind. A graveyard of confessions and evidence. Jane found the drawer once. She didn't say a word, just ran her fingers over the edges of the paper and asked, "Do you need this?" I nodded. She didn't press. Marley reappeared in person 2 weeks later. Not at my door, not at Jane's, at court. I was walking out of the clerk's office, finalizing a title transfer on the house. When I saw her across the hall, she looked like she'd been waiting. Same hoodie she used to wear to bed, sleeves pushed to her elbows, hair back in a rushed bun. She looked weathered, not ruined, just exposed, like someone whose mask had finally worn too thin. "Can we talk?" she asked. I stood still, cold light buzzing above us. Empty hallway. I didn't answer. "I'm not trying to fix anything," she said. "I know I can't. I wanted you to see me like this. No filters, no friends, no versions." I said one thing, quietly. "You had all of me." Her face twisted, not in pain, but recognition. She nodded once, bit her bottom lip like she used to when she knew she'd gone too far. "I know," she whispered. "That's what kills me." She didn't try to hug me, didn't ask to come back. She just turned and walked away. That night I told Jane everything. All of it. The letters, the cameras, the burner posts, even the drawer. I laid it bare because it was the only way to clean what was left. She listened, then said, "It's time to close the drawer." I didn't disagree. We took a short trip the next weekend. Austin. We stayed in a loft above a bakery, woke up to the smell of bread, drank coffee on the balcony. Jane bought white curtains for the apartment and let the breeze roll them into the room like something alive. I brought the drawer contents with me, not the actual drawer, just the pieces, the ring photo, the flash drives, the letters, the emails. We burned them in a steel bowl behind the Airbnb. No ceremony, just flame and wind. It didn't fix everything, but it freed something. 3 months passed without a single call, message, or sighting. Marley had finally vanished. Then last week I got a letter. Real mail. A return address scribbled in childlike script. It was from her parents' town. Inside, a single sentence. "I'm going away. I wanted you to know I'm sorry. Truly." No name, no date, no ask. Just a soft whisper from a ghost. I didn't cry. I didn't call Jane. I just sat on the edge of the bed and let the quiet sit with me. There are some apologies you don't answer. Not because you're bitter, but because they arrive too late to matter. Yellowstone was Jane's idea. She said it was somewhere she used to dream about as a kid. Waterfalls, wide skies, the kind of silence that didn't feel like emptiness. Just space. I needed space. We drove out in the early morning, packed light. No laptops, no lingering phone calls, no unfinished arguments. Just music on low volume and the smell of her skin as the sun rolled through the windshield. She dozed off somewhere past Casper, her head on my shoulder, hand resting on my thigh like she'd always belonged there. And maybe she had. The park was massive, more than I remembered. We hiked slow, steady, letting the altitude thin our thoughts. By the second day, we reached the waterfall. Jane asked for a picture. Nothing posed, just us with wind in our faces and the roar of water behind us. I smiled. For real. No effort, no mask. And in that instant, I realized something was gone. Not just Marley, not just the anger, but the weight. That low-grade static that had hummed inside my chest for over a year. It had vanished. I hadn't noticed it slipping away. I just looked down and realized I could breathe again. Later that night, wrapped in hotel sheets, Jane asleep beside me, I stood by the window and stared out into the dark. The stars looked cold, far away. I wasn't thinking about Marley. I was thinking about what I'd done. Because here's the truth. Revenge doesn't always come in fire. Sometimes it comes in paperwork, timing, quiet precision. Back before the divorce finalized, while she was busy spiraling on social media and chasing ghosts in borrowed cars, I wasn't just sitting still. I'd hired someone. Not a PI, someone more surgical. A tech guy, friend of a friend. MIT, clean, untraceable. I gave him 2 jobs. First, recover every single deleted message and image from her burner Telegram account. Not just mine, everyone's. Every timestamp, every pixel. Second, trace where those files had been sent, because Marley hadn't just cheated, she had recorded things, shared them. Some of those men were married. Some weren't even from this country. One was a teacher. One worked in a State Department. She'd been reckless in ways I hadn't imagined. I never intended to use what I found, until she tried to revise the story, her Reddit burner, her cry for sympathy letter, that little attempt to get the court to re-examine the settlement. That's what triggered me. Not the betrayal, not even the cheating, the rewrite. So I sent one package to each man's wife. No return address, no explanation, just the receipts, the truth. Their wives, their bosses, even their church in one case, got the truth, chapter and verse. Quietly, without warning. I left no fingerprints, just truth. They fell like dominoes. I never followed up. I didn't need to. I didn't want to see them suffer. I wanted them exposed. I wanted Marley to realize that she hadn't just destroyed me. She dug her own pit, and I'd simply removed the safety rail. That was it. No fire, no screaming match, just clean exits. But the final blow came later, and I never saw it coming. 2 months after Jane and I moved into our new place, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring. Voicemail. When I finally listened, I didn't recognize the voice at first. It was Marley's mother. Her tone was slow, quiet, measured like someone walking through smoke. She said Marley had checked into a wellness facility. Something about long-term treatment. She said Marley had signed over the last of her assets to cover the cost. She said there were no family visits allowed. Then she said one last thing. She said you won't reply, and she understands. But she told me to say this exactly. Tell him I finally watched the video. I know now. I get it. He was never the villain. I was. Then silence. I stood in the kitchen with that voicemail playing in my hand, eyes fixed on nothing. Jane walked in a minute later, hair wet from the shower, robe tied loose, humming something soft. She saw my face and paused. "Everything okay?" she asked. I nodded, pressed stop, slipped the phone into my pocket. "Yeah," I said. "Everything's finally okay." We made dinner that night, music playing, rain against the window, white curtains drifting like breath. The world felt still, and as I dried the dishes, I thought about the waterfall, about the picture, about the smile I wore that day. Clean, unscripted, and I thought about Marley, not with rage, not with longing, just like you think of a burned bridge when you're already halfway across the ocean. She had tried to play with fire, and I let her burn. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this, and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.